Hey everyone, this is the random podcast of awesomeness.
After our incredibly long hiatus of over 6 months.
Yes, we are back. This is Shadow Wolf.
Angered at 14, the only two left. Sadness.
Yes, all the other ones are no longer really able to be around.
Well, it's not that they're not able
Well,
to.
yeah.
Burke and Corb decided not to. Cheese is difficult to get a hold of at any point. And Cloud no longer has a mic.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
But Shadow and I will continue trying to do this because, well, we like the project, honestly. Anyway, before we left on our winter break, that lasted until mid-spring, we went to go play Monster Rancher Card Battle for the GBC, the Game Boy Color, if you will.
Yes, we did, and
spoilers for those of you that don't want to jump ahead to our ratings portion, because it's probably going to still be here, we didn't like the game.
Yeah, we did not really care for this game much at all. So this game takes place in the Monster Rancher universe, of course.
Yes.
And as the title suggests, it's based around cards. So you go around with your creatures and battle in a RPG style, but instead of like regular RPGs where you level up and stuff, you're using cards.
Yes, the collectathon method of RPGs.
Yes.
Which actually can work. Kingdom Hearts proved that this could work, at least in Chain of Memories, although, again, Chain of Memories, I didn't like that much. Anyhow, the story here is almost non-existent. You are protagonist hero A.
Pretty
That's
much,
not
yeah.
actually your name, but that's the name we've given him because we didn't play this game nearly as much as we should have. I apologize to all of our fans who are expecting an in-depth review, but yeah, we didn't play this game nearly as much as we were supposed to because we got bored of it. But as random protagonist hero A, who's almost always male or is androgynous, you'll go through many different adventures, ergo exploring several different temples with horribly translated text, or at least
Yes.
humorously translated text.
And actually, you do get to choose your gender in this game.
I didn't notice that. I don't think it was really that big of a deal because regardless...
It's not really that big, but...
Yeah, I don't think the dialogue changes depending on your gender, although there might be one or two scenes where it does. I like that about Summon Night Swordcraft, by the way. There's an entire arc that's entirely different if you change your gender. Pretty cool.
Unlike that game, this game is nothing like that. You go around, as we said, and there really isn't much exploration in this game.
Except what the story wants you to think is exploration, of course.
Right. I mean, in a way, it's like they tried to take Pokemon and use Monster Rancher, but didn't turn out very good. That's how I kind of feel.
I don't really agree with the Pokemon simile very much, but the way you move around the world definitely feels like a standard RPG of the time.
Yeah.
And just like in Pokemon, there are random breeders out there that you can go and battle with your monsters, and there's random encounters that are not breeders that you can encounter, and yeah, that's the definition of random encounter.
Yeah. Huh. So, as we said, we didn't really care for this game very much. Like we said, this is card-based, so you really don't want to battle as much as you might think you might want to.
And it's not just because of the card system, because you know how the Game Boy Color is a portable system, and you're supposed to pick it up and like play it maybe on a road trip or for a long journey. You play it or when you're on the toilet. I don't understand how people can play complex video games on the toilet. It bothers me. But you're supposed to be able to play this for short bursts and be able to put it down. Sadly, this game is not really built on that principle. It's definitely still a portable game, but it doesn't feel like one. Nope. In order to get the most amount of enjoyment out of this title, you're going to have to spend a lot of time going through the temples and attempting to complete your card collection, which is in fact one of the highlights of the game, actually. There is a vast amount of cards that you can get, each of them symbolizing different attacks from the Monster Rancher universe that your monsters can perform. Mind you, completing the collection is damn near impossible because there are certain rare cards that you can only obtain through outside methods, like the link cable thing that was shoved down this throat because it's a card game and we have to have the ability to trade.
And I have high doubts that anyone has a
I
friend
don't know
that's
anyone
willing
that
to
actually
trade
owned this
them.
game growing up, okay? So no. Knowing two people that owned this game would have been a miracle to me. Not because I would have asked them if I could play, because at the time I had the Pokemon TCG that I was maybe borrowing. I'm not sure if I stole it or not, but I was maybe borrowing it from someone else. And if they had had the Monster Rancher card battle, I would have expected them to have the Pokemon card battle, and we could have card popped for the special Venusaur and the Mew. And that was about all that you could do with card pop.
Yeah, but sadly, you're probably never going to use that feature. So anyway, this game is not the worst game out there.
No, it's not. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even go as far to say that it is a bad game. It's just meh and boring.
Yeah.
And it's not boring it's not boring in the normal way, like, the levels are uninteresting or combat feels like a drag. The thing is, combat, although it doesn't feel like a drag, takes a noticeably long time to complete, and it's everywhere. The random encounter system in this game, although not as prevalent as, say, Final Fantasy X-2, where it's every 5 steps, it starts to feel that way after a while.
It does. It really does. So it's a very, very tedious game.
Yes, the tedium in this game piles on really early, and it stays there for the whole game. If it's not the fact of walking through the temples, which is where you'll be spending most of your time,
right.
It's the fact of actually attempting to formulate what you're going to do next in combat, which is done with cards. Now, card-based combat can work, but it's more about resource management and picking what and trying to counteract what your opponent is going to do. Because much like the normal Monster Rancher games, guts play a factor into whether or not your monsters can attack or not. Now, Shadow, would you please explain this mechanic?
So basically, in the game, you have the different cards, and a lot of times you're going to get cards that you don't really want. So you end up using the cards you can, and then the rest of the cards leave until the next turn.
Where your entire hand is refilled.
Right. Well, that's when your entire hand's refilled. So it's annoying because you might get something that you don't need at the time, and it's just kind of bad.
Now, for those of you that are very interested in learning how this works, let's take an example of Golem and Naga, which are two of your starting monsters. Golem and Naga are high-power monsters for the most part. Naga's got a few low-power moves that actually have decent effects. But a Golem card to attack with, depending on what attack it's going to do, costs anywhere between like 3 to 7 guts,
Right.
And these attacks, because they're from Golem, a monstrous stone giant, hurt like a son of a bitch. Golem can easily 1 or 2 shot every monster in the game for the right price. He's never leaving your team, even after you get the better monsters like Hare and Suezo and Tiger. I don't even think they're really better than Pixie, but
it's debatable.
It's debatable. Pixie gets heal spells, dude. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But, yeah. If you're willing to, in order to have your monsters attack, you have to fill up your guts. And in order to fill up your guts, you have to discard cards that you're not going to use. So what ends up happening in my case is that I'll end up like discarding 4 or 5 of the cards in my hand and have a defensive card left over so that I can, protect myself while I build up other resources. It becomes the best deck in the game, at least from my perspective, would probably be one that specializes in having like anywhere between 4 to 10 defensive cards and like 4 to 10 offensive cards, where you have a perfect balance of high cost attacks that one-shot creatures, as well as being able to specialize on your Golem's defenses. I would say that Golem could probably go through this game on his own if you give him the right materials.
Probably. Yeah, I would say that Gerdat's pretty much on the money with how you should probably play your decks.
Mind you, that's not the only way there is to play, especially because, as a breeder, for the first time ever, you can actually directly interact and impact the fight! These cards are useless! Most of the time, your breeder cards just end up being guts fodder, because either they're really cheap but don't do anything, or really expensive and don't do the thing that you want them to.
Right.
Speaking of things that you don't want to do, I don't notice any status ailments in this game, which is actually a problem because, well, Monster Rancher doesn't really have status ailments per se, but they can get pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
That's a definite negative that this game has. It has the Monster Rancher license, but all it does to it is it transforms it into a card battle system. And it doesn't really feel like you're connecting with your monsters. I had to go out of my way to try and connect to Naga because he kept getting focused on. It was not fair to him. Why must they focus on you?
But yeah, coming from the Monster Rancher franchise, you would have expected more out of this, I think.
A lot more. On the plus side, there are definite plus sides to this game. In particular, the humorous translation that was slapped on this, because this clearly needed to be retranslated a couple of times. Because, oh god, this is hilarious. Starting off the game, Shad and I were just rolling on how freaking hilarious this was.
Yes, it was very badly translated.
Mm-hmm. But and a few of the sprite artworks do not look nearly as well as they should. Your hero looks like he's on his knees at all times. I know they're supposed to be feet, but they look like he's on his knees.
One of the translations that I actually spoke with Gerdat about this, and whenever you receive an item, instead of being like, you have obtained this, or got that, it says, I will get you whatever, or something to that degree.
It says, whatever, you will be mine.
Yeah, you will be mine. Or
whatever will be mine, whichever one it is. And it's like he's screaming at it, and being very possessive. And it's like, why can't you just say, got, or I have acquired?
Right.
That's mostly a preference thing, though. There are worse translated lines in here.
I'm sure there are. I mean, that's just something that really sticks out.
Yeah, because you end up hearing it all the damn time.
Right.
Scratch one will be mine. Over and over again. Speaking of, the collectathon in this game is not handled that well. The rare cards that are, incredibly difficult to get pretty much require the link cable system, and that's not a good thing. There is a tournament in town. I don't know if it functions. I really don't. I think you have to clear all three of the first temples, in order to get into the tournament. And I was never, inclined enough to clear all three temples.
Yes, we were not really determined to beat this game.
Indeed, we weren't. Again, I apologize for that, but there's just not really that much here. There's plenty of content if you want it, but it's not engaging or entertaining to go through.
So, sound. What did you think of the sound?
Sound. I do love the 8-bit rearrangement for the Monster Rancher title theme. That is a fucking awesome sound. But most of the other sound effects and music tracks, especially the temple track, just end up being faded out somewhere. They're not bad tunes, but you won't really notice them, and I'm not sure how much of an insult that really is, because you'll be hearing the temple tune all the damn time. You just won't be knowing it. It's very repetitive, and if you listen to it for the beginning of it, you'd probably like it for a little bit. And then it gets repetitive. Over and over and over.
So yeah, we tended not to really notice the music too much.
Yeah,
We know it's
and
there, but
the sound effects actually do sound like standard GBC fare, which is a
yeah.
good thing for the most part. But I kind of wish there was a bit more variety in the sound effects. I'm not saying that there would have been much more variety to have, but I kind of wish it was there nonetheless.
Being a Game Boy Color game, they probably could have even done like a few voices or whatever.
No, no, the GBC sound chip is pretty damn limited, dude. I mean, the closest thing we got to voices was cries, remember?
Yeah,
And we have a few cries in this game, not monster cries, but random encounter cries, I think.
right.
So, yeah, remember, sound bites are several kilobytes big. And
So
back
yeah,
in the
that's
days before before the reign of the megabytes, a couple of kilobytes was a huge deal.
so that's pretty much it on the music. As for graphics,
For the most part, the graphics are actually okay.
yeah,
It's mostly standard GBC fare. I would have liked a little bit more detail on the monster designs, and again, the less said about your breeder sprite, the better. Matter of fact, a lot of the human sprites look like they're ripped directly out of somewhere else, except yours, which looks like it was custom made and then depixelated and tried to be reformed again. Ugh.
I mean the graphics might not have been stunning, but they were nice.
Yes, they were nice for the most part.
And actually, during the battles, where like you see like the images for like the cards and whatnot, those are actually not that bad.
And they're animated too.
They are.
You guys might not think much of this at the time with what you guys playing Pokemon Crystal, but animated sprites in GBC days, oh yeah, all of the awesomeness. They're slight animations, mind you. They're not anything like big or groundbreaking. It's actually kind of the stuff that you would see in Crystal, really. Just a bit of shifting there, wing flaps, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, yeah. Overall, the graphics in this are pretty decent.
Yep,
I wish we could say more good things about this game.
definitely. Because we are, in fact, casual fans of the Monster Rancher license. I would go and
Right.
play Monster Rancher 1, 2, and 4 all day. I haven't played I haven't played any of 3, and we're not even going to be discussing Vivo or Evo. Now, will we? No. Go away. just go.
So yeah, if you're a big fan of the series, I could understand maybe wanting to play this.
If
you're
you're a huge Monster Rancher nut, then I could see, going to play this instead of pirating yourself a copy of Monster Farm Online. Because that's still not happening.
If you're just a casual gamer or just like a casual,
If you're a casual fan of the marketplace, there's
Right.
really nothing here for you. There are better card battle games. In fact, the Pokemon TCG game, which we shouldn't be mentioning, is far better than this.
it
Matter
is.
of fact, even Dark Duel Stories is better than this. And Dark Duel Stories has a lot of problems.
I remember that game.
And it was fun, wasn't it? I mean,
That was-
yeah, you only
that was-
played it for about half an hour at a time because that's all you could really stomach. But it was still more fun than this. And
I mean, with this,
if
you
you
don't-
think about it, Dark Duel Stories has less content than this thing does.
It does, and with this having as much content as it does,
I really wish there was a better reason to go out and explore it, but there
Right.
really isn't. You're just trying to complete your monster collection and raise your breeder rank. I don't even know how you do that in this game. I think it's in the town tourney, but
I mean, stats don't really matter at all in this game.
is there even a damn stats page? I don't think I found it.
I didn't notice it if there was.
I know that you can get items both in town and in the dungeons to help your monsters in combat. I never found a reason to use them though, because my monsters, or at least for wild encounters, were at least twice as strong as my opponent at all times. It was only when you got into the boss encounters at the bottom where you were actually given some sort of challenge, and even those Golem and Naga pretty much walked through.
Now, I just thought that I should probably mention this, but in the game, they have things like Coin's Tail, or whatever, and It's usually a good idea to make sure you use this because it can determine who goes first in the battle.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you cannot go first in a random encounter. You can only go
Right,
first you can only attempt to go first in a coin fight, in a
right.
trainer fight rather. And the trainer fights aren't that much harder
Not really.
than the random encounters, and it doesn't really matter if you go first. You have twice as much HP and overall power as each and every single one of your opponents.
For the
So
most part, yep.
until the later parts of this game, you really don't need to be using your items. And even in those parts, if you actually have been building up your deck, you probably don't need to use them at all.
It's a shame, really.
hmm So
Uh,
yeah, that's pretty
that's the
much
basic
all
gist of it,
that
yeah.
we really have to say about this. It's not a bad game. I should probably go a little bit further into the combat. For example, what different cards there are, but it's pretty standard strategy fare. Attack, defense, support cards. You use them appropriately and crush your opponents. That's all you really need to do. The
Yeah, there's
resource management angle in this is interesting, but I really wish that guts were less difficult to keep.
yeah, that is the difficult part.
Attacking with you're only ever going to attack with your golem like 3 times in a match, because that's about all the guts you can afford. Mind you, he'll kill everything with those 3 attacks. Literally
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, he'll one-shot everything. Uh, so, overall, this wasn't a terrible game. This has potential. I just didn't find the potential in it.
Indeed. If you were looking for a collectathon game, there are better collectathon games out there. You want a card battle game? There are better card battle games out there. You want a Monster Rancher game? This is not really a Monster Rancher game. You need to go back to your PS1, people.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, and that's really one of the bigger insults here. The license is not used well.
No, it's not. I mean, I like the fact that they actually did make some jokes in several parts about Temco because that's who made it, and they're like, visit the Temco website or whatever.
Yeah, back when everyone had to mention that they had a website. I
Right.
didn't actually come across any of those jokes though. But
There was actually one at the very beginning of the game. If
mm,
you went into one of the houses, it said something about Temco.
okay, there are a few fourth wall jokes to be had though, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, but other than the intentional and or unintentional humor that's here, again, there's just not much here for us. I guess it's about time that we try and do final thoughts then, because I got nothing much else.
Right, and that's pretty much it. So, final thoughts on this game. What do you say, Grat?
I want to like this game, I really do, but at the end of the day, I can't. It's if I have to rate it, which I'm supposed to, I give it a 5 out of 10. It's a good game, but it's not a game that I'm ever going to come back to. I don't enjoy playing this. It's just boring and tedious to go through. And that is one of the bigger offenders a game can be, but I can't hurt it too bad because there wasn't really much hope for this concept. I mean, if this concept were done correctly, and guts were like individually assigned to monsters, you had a rotation system, that kind of thing, then
That would have worked out.
I could definitely see the concept of combat in this game actually working. But it's card based and it doesn't really work as a card based system. I give this a 5 out of 10. It's an average game at best, and there's no real reason to go out and get this.
So, I pretty much agree with what Gurdat said. Uh, I wouldn't really go out of my way to play this, even though we kind of did. Uh, uh, I would normally, I probably would have picked this up just because it said Monster Rancher, and afterwards I would have, for a little while, and put it down. I don't see any replayability for this game, and I don't really see any reason to try beating this game. Uh, Graphics, I like the graphics. The sound was decent. But overall, at the end of the day, I just don't care for the game that much. I'm going to have to give this a 4 out of 10.
Which means I liked it slightly better than he did. And that's pretty much what we got, guys. I'm sorry that it took us so long to get this out, but again, we were out of contact for 6 months.
I mean, it's nice that we're back, but...
And hopefully we can get back to a somewhat regular schedule, but I don't know yet.
So, thanks for watching.
Or listening in this case.
Listening, yes. Either way.
And
we will have some sort of graphical there, so...
Yeah, yes, I'll definitely put up a graphic, because that's what we're supposed to do.
So, yeah, thanks guys, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Assuming there is one. This is Gurdette 14 of the Random Podcast of Awesomeness.
And this is Shadow Wolf. So thank you everyone, and have a good day or evening or whatever time it is that you're listening to this.
Be safe, guys.